and that will be on the next line. So the instruction is enter your morning schedule according to the time provided below, and that's where we're going to tell them what do you do at 7 a.m., what do you do at 8 a.m., at 9 a.m., and so on. So we're going to print again system.out.println, and then we're going to open parenthesis. And the reason I mentioned before is we really do want to make it personalized, so we're going to use the name of the person, which is stored under this variable called name, and we're going to put the concatenate sign, which is a plus sign, and then we're going to ask the question, so we'll give a space so it's not too close to the name, so it's spaced out. One space is okay. And we're going to tell them enter your morning routine according to the time or to the times provided below. Enter your morning routine. So whoever this person is, if this person is Nazha, then it's going to say Nazha, enter your morning routine according to the times provided below. So enter your morning routine, or you can say morning schedule. That's also a good one. According to the times provided below. According to the times or time schedules. But I feel if you put time schedules, it's like a repetition of this. So you could just say, if you want to do time schedules, then you just have to say enter your morning routine according to the time schedules below. I think I'm just going to go with time. So according to the times indicated below. Okay, so this is going to allow them to enter their routine starting at 7 a.m. So we're going to go to the next line, and this is where we now begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell them what do you do at 7 a.m. and this is how you can write it. System.out.println again. So remember, we're using a lot of print statements to display information on our console. And we're going to tell them so it prints 7 a.m. What did they do? So we'll basically just do 7 a.m., put a colon, a hyphen, and a space. And then we'll close this with a semicolon as well. Now we need to allow user to be able to enter input, so we're going to declare a variable that's going to store this input from the user. So we'll declare a variable of a string type, and we'll call this variable something meaningful, so I'm just going to call it 7 a.m., and that's equal to the name of our scanner object. Remember obj.next, or you can say next line. Any one use is fine, as we've seen in our previous parts of our lesson. Now, we've already given them the opportunity to enter their schedule at 7 a.m. And we're kind of just going to repeat this for 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and then 11 a.m., of course, because then this goes all the way to 7 a.m. all the way till 11 a.m. because essentially it's supposed to be a morning routine diary. So if we include 12 p.m., then it goes towards afternoon again. You can include that if you want as an extra, but I would just say just stick towards the fact that it is a morning routine diary, so it goes through times that are specified in the mornings. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do another system.out.print statement. So you can do println, and then we're going to put in speech quotation marks, 8 o'clock a.m. So what did they do at this time? A colon, a hyphen, and a space, and then remember to close this with a semicolon. So once you close it with a semicolon, hit enter, then create another variable that's going to be called 8 a.m. And this variable is going to store the user's routine at this time every morning. So we are going to write the name of our scanner object, and you can use your scanner object as many times as necessary. One thing to take in mind though is when you are creating scanner objects that are used to receive text and number inputs, it's always a better idea to have two separate scanner objects, one that receives text and one that receives numbers, so you don't have a mix of both, because sometimes with Java, when you do have one scanner object that's receiving both text and number, it tends to not allow the user to make entries, like to input data at some certain point in your program. So especially when you've asked a question that requires text data, and then after that you ask a question that requires number data, you realize that the user cannot put input. It just skips the part of giving the user the opportunity to enter something, and it moves to the next thing. So it's a better idea to have a separate scanner object, and what I mean by scanner object is what we've done on line 4. So have one that receives text, which is different from the one that would receive numbers. So right now, for this whole Grinch morning routine diary, we're basically requiring only text input. So we're not at any point in time requiring number input from the user. So next thing is to put next, or you can say next line. Remember, that's going to receive again the input, so we are putting the right scanner method. And then of course we ask the next question, so system.out.println, and the next question is we're giving a 1 hour gap between the times. So started at 7 a.m., went to 8 a.m., and now we're going to 9 a.m. So we put a quotation mark, and then we will be writing out our 9 a.m. here. And then of course the colon and hyphen and a space, and put our semicolon at the end. And we're going to do the same thing again by declaring a variable of a string data type so we can store the morning activity of the user at 9 a.m. So we're going to write the variable name. I'm going to call it 9 a.m. You notice that I don't give variable spaces between variable names, which I forgot to mention earlier on. That's because one of the rules of naming variables in Java or any programming language is you never give spaces. You always have to put something, if it's a two-worded variable, between each word. So that's why I'm putting an underscore. Or you can put a character, any other character on your keyboard. I'm just going to dismiss this, okay? So it doesn't show up. This has nothing to do with code. It's just Grammarly. And then we're going to say equal sign. We're going to write the name of our scanner object, which is obj. Don't forget, and we're going to write dot next line or next, and then put a circular bracket and close this with a semicolon. Now, once you're done, you will do 10 a.m. and all you're left with is 11 a.m. And then we can finally start printing out the registered morning routine of the user. You notice again that there's this, yellow underline, and when you take your mouse over it, it just tells you that something has never been closed. And that's because we haven't used them yet. They've never been used, not closed. In this case, it's never closed because it's a scanner object that you've opened because you're receiving input, and we're not closing it yet because we're still receiving input from the user. We only close it at the end of the program, which you'll see. But all these other ones are because these variables have not been used. So as you can see, it says the local variable, which is the variable defined inside of your main method that you can access from anywhere in your class. They haven't been used. You haven't printed them or you haven't used them yet. So that's why they're underlined in orange color. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a variable again of a string data type. And oops, not that, sorry. We're going to write out a print statement. And this print statement is going to be for 10 a.m. So I had thought that we'd already written that down, but we haven't. So we're going to write it, and it's going to be for 10 a.m. And we'll put a colon, and then of course a hyphen and space. And then we'll close this with a semicolon. And then we'll declare a variable, again, of a string data type that's going to be storing the user's input. So we're going to call this 10 a.m., so 10 underscore a.m. And that's going to be equal to the scanner object obj.next, or you can say next line. So we're putting the right scanner method that goes with the data type of string. And finally, we're going to write down another print statement, which will be the last one. And this is going to record the user's activity at 11 a.m. So 11 a.m. and then we'll put a colon hyphen space, and then of course close this with a semicolon. And then of course declare a data type of a string, and we'll write 11 and then underscore am, and that's going to be equal to the scanner object obj.next line, and then close the circular bracket and put a semicolon. Now we're done receiving input from the user, and what we're going to do next is we're going to be printing out all this information back to the user, telling them that your registered morning routine activities are provided below, and then the user can have a look at what they've actually registered. What I like to do, which I think is pretty fun to do, and you're going to learn more about it in the upcoming lessons of this course, is I really like to put some sort of line or decoration, which is also known as ASCII art, so some form of ASCII art, just to distinguish between my inputs and my outputs. So what I mean is I'll put a quotation mark, and I'll just put like regular hyphens, hyphens on your keyboard. I'm just going to put hyphens right there. You can also drag this, by the way, drag your main Java file just so you can have more room, more space. And I really like to do this because it just creates a really nice decor, and makes a difference between receiving input and actually output. So I just print a bunch of hyphens, but I don't really count it. So just to make it look nice, you don't have to put this in. This is optional. So if you want to omit this, print the statement, you can just omit printing it at all. I'm just going to keep it there, and you're going to see how it looks and what I mean. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put another system.out.println statement, and I'm going to tell the user that your registered morning routine schedule is provided below. And the user would see exactly what they had entered all combined together for record. So I'm going to put the name of the user, so it will say the name of the person, and then I'll put speech quotation marks and give a space and say your registered morning routine is provided below, or morning schedule. So your registered morning routine or schedule is indicated or displayed below. Your registered morning routine, okay, is displayed below, or is displayed, I think is displayed below would work. You can put anything you'd like there. And then I'll just close this with a semicolon. So if this person's name was Michael, it's just going to say, Michael, your registered morning routine is provided or is displayed below. Oh, I forgot to put the below, by the way. So it's displayed below. And then you come down here, and this is where we kind of just now start to print out stuff, print all the information the user has entered. So system.out.println, I'm going to write what they entered for 7 a.m. And then, of course, I'll put the colon and the hyphen, and then I'll come out of the speech quotes. So you can never put your variable inside of speech quotes. If you have a variable like these variables, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., they have to be outside of the quotation because they're variables, they're storage locations, and they're not text-like information. So I'll just concatenate the text information with the name of the variable, and I'll just write 7_a.m. and then close this with a semicolon. I'll do the same, and I'll print the next one. So system.out.println, open parenthesis, and I'm just going to do the speech quotation marks, and this is going to be for 8 a.m. And I'll put a colon and hyphen and space, and then come out of the quotation marks and concatenate that with the 8 a.m. Variable that we had, and then close this with a semicolon as well. Then repeat this again for our 9 a.m. until we get all the way to our 11 a.m. So we're just printing out the schedule that the user already entered for the user to be able to see what they've actually entered. And you realize that I'm giving spacing because one thing about Java is if you don't give spacing, things tend to get displayed closer to each other. So it's a good idea to give spacing. And here I'm going to write 9 a.m. and close this with a semicolon. And then, of course, I'm going to go with system.out.println again, and I'm going to open up here and do 10 a.m. and that's just going to be with a colon hyphen, and of course concatenate this with the 10_a.m. variable, close this with a semicolon. And finally, we are in the last print statement, and that's going to be for 11 a.m. As you can see, we're just printing out the same information that the user has entered, but in sort of like an organized fashion. So here I'm going to write 11 and then _a.m. and we are pretty much done. So the next thing to do will just be to put a nice thank you message. So what I'm going to do is I really like to copy, I'm going to copy this line here that I have on lines 21. I'm just going to copy this dash, this random hyphen, line, and then I'll just paste it here just because I want it to look nice. So it looks like that. It looks like a part, not like joined with anything else. And then after that, you don't have to do this, by the way. You can skip the whole copy paste line 21 part if you're not really keen on ASCII art, but you're going to learn more about ASCII art, and it's a really interesting thing to put in your code. It just makes everything look better. So here I'm just going to go with the system.out.println statement, and I'm just going to say thank you for entering your morning schedule details, and that will be the end. So I'll tell the user a nice thank you message. So thank you for entering your morning routine. You can also write it as that way. And then, that's the end of the program, and that's what the user would see at the end. So thank you for entering your morning schedule details, or you can say your morning routine details, anything you would like to indicate. And then we finally close this with a semicolon. And that's the end. So now the program should be error-free. If you have, oh, and by the way, we have to close the scanner object. It still says that the OBJ is never closed. So it's a good idea to close your scanner object once you're no longer receiving input from the user. Just close the scanner object by writing the name of your scanner object.close, and that will do the trick for you. So once you've done that, the orange line would disappear. And now we're going to test it out. So just gently go through your codes and compare with mine. Make sure you've imported the scanner class at the beginning. Make sure you created the scanner object properly. You have your print statements and each line's closed with a semicolon. Just compare and make sure you've done everything right, because sometimes the slightest mistakes could be the one that causes any error that you may have. And just compare, and you can see that this curly brace is actually the one for the main method that was opened, finally closes here, and we have a curly brace as well here, which is for the class that finally closes at the end. Again, remember guys, as I've mentioned, you can make use of your chat function. You can invite me to your code and leave comments. This is my username here, Alicia Habibi3. If you have any problems and you're really stuck and you don't know what to do and your code is not working, I'll do my very best to get back to you as soon as I can with some solutions. So just make use of your informations that you have here. Okay, just try to get familiar with the environment on Replit. So now we can run. One good thing I like to do when running my program is just to drag my console all the way to the left side so I can maximize space and I could really see how the program works. So we're going to click on the run button and we're going to wait for it to compile and run. So it starts with what is your name. I'm going to put my name. It says Alicia. Nice to meet you. Alicia, enter your morning schedule according to the times indicated. So 7 a.m. I would say I wake up, maybe I'll just start with brush my teeth, you know. So this is just, you know, regular routine kind of thing. 8 a.m., take a shower, and then it goes to the next thing. 9 a.m., I probably would do some self-care. Okay, so do some self-care. And then at 10 a.m., I would have my breakfast, so have breakfast. And then at 11 a.m., I'll be working, so just put working. And then you see what it does. It just basically gives me a very lovely looking schedule right there. It says, Alicia, your registered morning routine is displayed below. You know, 7 a.m., brush my teeth. You can see it's the same information I entered. 8 a.m., take a shower. 9 a.m., I do self-care. 10 a.m., I have breakfast, which you can see is what I entered. 11 a.m. is I'm working. And then I finally have this thank you message. So you could see the use of why I had this lines just to indicate this differentiation between the inputs and the final output. So I hope your program works well. If it doesn't work well, that's okay. Remember, you're in the very beginning steps of programming. So you can definitely send me a chat message or, yeah, just the message on the platform where you're viewing this course, and I will definitely do my very best to get back to you. Usually it's more efficient if you just invite me and just send me a message saying, could you have a look, or I'm stuck somewhere. And I'll definitely do my best to help you because I really do want you to get very familiar with Java. It's a very easy programming language, but you just have to understand the basics. So that's it. We're going to move on to our next part of our lesson.